Welcome to this webinar, which is designed to give you some ideas for your Key Stage 3 curriculum. My name is Becky Kitchen and I am the Head of Professional Development at the Geographical Association. My role is to support you in your work, and so if you have any questions or anything that you would like support and guidance on, you can contact me at any time. So the first thing to have in place when you're planning your Key Stage 3 curriculum is a vision. What do you want your perfect geographer to know and to be able to do by the end of Key Stage 3? Having a vision creates the why. It establishes a clear endpoint, which enables a curriculum journey to be planned, delivered, and through various checkpoints, progress measured and assessed. One useful activity to determine your vision is to ask all of your department to label a stick person with the knowledge, skills, and characteristics that they'd want a perfect geographer to have. While it's likely there will be similarities between all of your stick people, it's also likely that key characteristics will either feature across the board or be deemed to be most important. These are the aspects that your curriculum can shine a spotlight on, the golden threads that make learning geography in your school different to somewhere else. Once you have your vision, you need to think about your curriculum. Think about two well-known television programs, The Simpsons and Game of Thrones. The Simpsons is light-hearted, entertaining and fun. There's a limited range of characters who can be described quite superficially. For example, Bart is mischievous, Lisa is intelligent and compassionate. And each episode is self-contained. You can enjoy watching an episode without having seen any of the others and in any order. Contrast that with Game of Thrones. It's a difficult watch, but it is worth the investment. There's a large cast of characters who change and develop over the episodes and seasons. One character might transform from young and adventurous in season 1 to a skilled and independent adult by the end of the series. Each episode links to the one before and after it, and you must watch them in this order, otherwise the plot makes little sense. We can use this analogy to think about our geography curriculum. We want a Game of Thrones curriculum, one which has a series of concepts that are developed in terms of complexity as pupils encounter them. There's a clear destination, the vision of your perfect geographer that we thought about earlier, and a definite sequence to the lessons and topics that pupils encounter. There are two phases to sequencing your curriculum effectively. The first involves justifying what you teach and when, while the second helps to ensure that progression is built in. Both phases are easier to do if you're planning a curriculum from scratch, but it is quite possible to retrofit onto an existing curriculum, although you may need to tweak the order of things as you go. So for phase 1, justifying what you teach and when. The first thing to consider is, do you cover the national curriculum? While you might not have to teach it because you teach in an academy or an independent school or internationally, it is quite a useful starting point, given that the content for GCSEs builds on what is taught at Key Stage 1, 2 and 3. Maybe carry out an audit so that you can see those topics which are well covered, partially covered and not covered by your curriculum. Then write the heading of all your topics on separate post-it notes and place them where you currently teach them. On each post-it, write a sentence justifying why you teach it when you do. How does it link back to previous topics and link forward to others? What knowledge do pupils need to have early on if they're to understand more complex topics? The second phase is to build in conceptual progression. The first thing to do is to select the geographical concepts that will underpin your curriculum. While the GEO curriculum framework has some suggestions, the case study schools in the book Planning Your 11 to 16 Geography Curriculum all took slightly different approaches that you can see here. All chose between 5 and 8 concepts, and while there were some similarities, if you have a look, place and space make appearances in several, others were more unique. Your vision will guide you in your decision making, so if in your vision, for example, you've highlighted sustainability as an important thing to focus on, this is likely to be one of your concepts running through your curriculum. Once you have identified your concepts, you can then map when they appear in your curriculum. Do they appear in every unit? How do pupils' engagement with each of the concepts develop over time? This example from Kingsthorpe College, one of our secondary geography quality mark schools, illustrates this process. Firstly, they selected their underpinning concepts and ensured that everyone, including the students, knew what they meant. Then, they looked at each unit in turn and mapped how the concepts played out within it. This example illustrates what this looks like from a Year 8 unit focused on Brazil. While they wanted every concept to be covered within each unit, this is not essential. However, if you're struggling to fit any of your concepts within a unit, it does prompt the question as to whether the unit or the concepts are quite right for your curriculum. Once they had done this for each unit, they then mapped what that meant in terms of progression for each of the concepts. You can see the overview below, with a second image focusing in on how the concept of development becomes more complex throughout Year 7, 8 and 9. Here are all the times that the concept of development is tackled in Year 7, 8 and 9, and you can see that there is development between Year 7, where questions are quite straightforward and simple. What does the word development mean? What is trade? Through to Year 9, where it's much more complex. Why should we consider development as a continuum? Or how does development compare within a country? If we design our curriculum in the way that Kingsthorpe did, then progress actually is built or hardwired in. Progress in geography can be understood and measured in various ways, reflecting changes in knowledge, skills, understanding, and geographical thinking over time. Progress in geography involves students broadening their experiences and acquiring more substantive knowledge about places, geographical processes, and spatial patterns. It also means developing their disciplinary knowledge, such as the ability to think geographically, make connections, analyse evidence, and understand abstract concepts. Progress often happens in fits and starts, with periods of consolidation and sudden leaps in understanding rather than a strictly linear fashion. In terms of the types and dimensions of progress, students can gain broader and deeper knowledge about places, contexts, and geographical themes, and using increasingly precise geographical vocabulary. They also develop competence in geographical inquiry, such as asking questions, collecting and analysing data, interpreting maps and graphs, and conducting fieldwork independently. You can see here from this slide that we can move from more concrete and familiar concepts to more complex and abstract ideas, making increasingly sophisticated explanations and connecting learning across different scales and contexts. For example, you can see here that we're at a starting point, possibly the home area. It's quite a concrete concept if we're looking at place. And as students journey through points A, B, C, D, E, and so on, they get to a growing understanding of place as a generalisation. They study a wider range of particular instances, maybe neighbourhoods, communities, spaces, landscapes, regions. And then at point H, that is the point at which place as a general idea or key concept is understood. So how do we measure and assess this progress? At its most basic, assessment gauges how far along the journey pupils are to becoming the ideal geographer described in your vision of what you're trying to achieve. And in order to fully understand a pupil's geographical knowledge, understanding and capabilities, a mixed economy of assessment is needed. This might include short tests of specific knowledge, more developed inquiries to assess conceptual understanding and skills, and perhaps occasional synoptic assessments such as problem solving or decision-making exercises. Similarly, pupils can demonstrate their understanding through creating a map, building an annotated model, engaging in a debate, creating a poster, producing a film, writing a piece of poetry or prose, really anything that enables them to demonstrate what they know and can do. One way of ensuring that you have a mixed economy of assessment built into your curriculum is to complete this grid as a cover sheet for every unit. While you wouldn't be expected to have each of these cells to be filled in over the course of a unit, you might expect them all to be covered over a year, or at least over a key stage. This will help you see the spread of assessment, as if pupils are only ever engaged in activities that enable them to demonstrate that they can remember factual knowledge, then it's very difficult for the teacher to truly assess how effective they are as geographers. I think very often we think our curriculum is working if our GCSE results are good. However, while GCSE results are one measure of success, there are lots of other things that we can look at and lots of different people we can ask to find out if it's really effective. Therefore, my last idea is to focus on the impact and make sure that the journey from intent or vision to implementation or teaching and impact is a clear one. Who could we ask to know whether our curriculum is working or not? Certainly the school leadership team is likely to have a view, but so do the students, Ofsted, parents and governors. Subject associations like the GA also may have a view, and we run the Geography Quality Mark to accredit and reward schools who take an in-depth view of their own curriculum. Not only does this process provide a framework for you to do this in your school, but it also gives you examples from other successful schools so you can see how they are thinking about curriculum too. So the various players who might have a view about your curriculum, but what torches might they hold, and what aspects may they shine a spotlight on? Looking at GCSE student numbers, engagement, behaviour, commitment to learning, and the quality of student achievement are useful areas of focus in addition to GCSE results. But ultimately, does the curriculum support students in thinking and working as geographers? Does it support them in meeting the vision that you identified at the beginning? This is when you know that your curriculum has been truly successful. So those are my 5 ideas for your Key Stage 3 curriculum. Number 1, have a clear idea of your endpoints for each key stage. What do you want your students to know and be able to do? 2, build a Game of Thrones curriculum that has clear threads running through it. 3, choose the geographical concepts that you want to base your curriculum on. These will be linked to your vision. 4, use the curriculum as the progression model by building on knowledge and skills. And 5, make sure that you consider the impact of your curriculum as much as your vision and the teaching of it. If you need further support on any of the things discussed in this webinar, search the GA website for articles, resources and support.